Friday, June 5th, 2020, Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're covering on today's episode of the show. As plans begin to take shape for companies to make a transition back to offices and places of work, there are a few different approaches being tried out, including Apple's, which we'll detail on the show. We'll also be joined by a usual cast of great guests, including Justin Sylvester, the co-host of E's Daily Pop, who will be talking about the frank discussions he has on his podcast, Just the Sip. We'll also be joined by Wendy Gonzalez, the interim CEO of Samasource, to discuss their incredible pivot at the onset of the pandemic to help facilitate safe working conditions for their employees. And making his return to Digital Trends Live will be our computing editor, Luke Larson, who will join us for a hands-on review of the all-new Dell XPS 15 laptop with some features you'll want to hear about. All that and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. Heads up, you're on NYC. Back to Digital Trends Live, or welcome to the show. Just to start off, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We do really appreciate it. Of course, we are live here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. And we do appreciate everybody who joins us, whatever platform you're on. You can join in the discussions that we get to have, and we have a lot of them. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to be talking about some trending news right now. So Twitter is something that a lot of people are turning to for their news sources, and this is what we're going to be going to right now, talking about how many people are downloading it, and there's a lot of news coming on that. And here's the thing. So with everything that's going on with the unrest, with everything that's happening with protests, with everything that's going on with that, naturally a lot of people want to find a source to stay up to date with everything, and Twitter is definitely a place to go do that. And with the downloads that we're seeing, it sounds like, according to Twitter, there were some 40 million people logged in on the app, daily users for it, and that was for yesterday alone. They also said that as far as downloads, there are millions of people that are downloading it, breaking records. It depends on which source you go to, but multiple sources are saying that there are some records happening with this. So everybody turning to Twitter to follow their news. I know I do myself, because it's where you get late-breaking stuff. It's where you get to follow along with what's happening, and so that is something that a lot of people are doing. And in association with Twitter, we do have some other news about that, and we know that they have been fighting against misinformation and other things that have been happening online. We know about the copyright infringement, or copyright infringement is what we're discussing right now, because on Thursday, June 4th, the Twitter took down videos posted by two of the Trump administration's re-election campaign profiles. So Team Trump and Trump War Room both had videos taken down. They were 4-minute long, paid tributes to George Floyd. They were narrated by the speech the president gave a few days ago. These were taken down for copyright infringement. So the videos taken offline. The tweets are still up. You can see those if you can find those, but taken down over copyright issues. So it further proves Twitter is looking to battle a lot of different things with that, misinformation being one of them, and copyright infringement being another one. So that is something that they did. They took down those videos. So that is, again, Twitter news here, starting it off just because it is so valuable right now. Continuing on with other trending news that we have for you. Let's talk about going back to work. So this is something that a lot of different companies and organizations are trying to figure out. I'm sure if you're watching this, your company has had a discussion with it, if you are working for one, or if you're thinking about how you're going to get back into an office. A lot of people are going to follow some examples that we're getting from Silicon Valley, and that is Apple being one of them. Apple, who has been slowly bringing people back into work as far as essential workers. They, in particular, have an issue just because of all the hardware they work on. It's very secretive. They have to have people there to work on that. And one of the ways they're going to be doing this is that apparently they're going to be offering employees COVID-19 nasal swab tests as they return to work. So when they come in, they can get tested. They're going to be setting up temperature checks when somebody shows up for work. So if you show up to the office, you'll get a temperature check. They're going to limit the number of people that can use elevators, which makes a lot of sense. They're also going to institute very strict social distancing measures, and everybody's going to be required to wear masks around the office. So this is all coming from a report about this. I mean, you can certainly see how this could be applied to a lot of places, even with the Apple stores. I believe they're going to be requiring masks for that and temperature checks even to go into the store. So it makes sense that at their head offices, this is what will be going on. And this could be a sign of how we're going to see things transition back to work. That's why this stuff is important, seeing how they handle it. Google and Facebook are allowing employees to work from home until at least the end of 2020. Twitter said they can work from home forever. So again, each company having a different kind of stance on that, but that is what Apple is doing. So could be a sign for how other people could handle that. Continuing on here with trending news, making sure that you're up to date with what is going on in the world of technology and things that we use. Facebook, certainly something, and I talked about misinformation earlier. Well, Facebook has now made an announcement that coming out later this summer, they're going to be labeling certain media outlets as state-controlled media if they are such. So this means sites like, I mean, obvious ones, Sputnik and China Daily, different ones that are 100%, that are controlled by government organizations. But there's a lot of other ones out there that they may be not quite as obvious with that. And what they're going to be doing to do this is this label is going to be based on official statements, ownership structure and stakeholders, editorial leadership and guidelines, policies and oversight, and last but not least, the state of media freedom in the host country. So all of those are going to go into factors. They've got a team that's going to be doing this. These experts will analyze and classify the news organization so that when you see something shared on there, it'll say, hey, it could say this is state-controlled media. It could say, what it would do is say, this publisher is wholly or partially under the editorial control of a state. This is determined by a range of factors, including but not limited to funding, structure, and journalistic standards. That's a warning that could pop up on certain organizations when they post news on there. And these things have a lot of power. A lot of these organizations have a lot of power, and you may not realize they're state-controlled, but that's something Facebook is going to be doing. So be on the lookout for that rolling out here, especially as we go towards the election. Continuing on here with trending news, going to switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about some more tech things, and actually something pretty cool that tech has been able to do. And that is this is a report that came out, I believe, in Nature magazine, talking about the use of LiDAR. Now, LiDAR is used for, a lot of people know it from what's going on with autonomous vehicles. That's one way that LiDAR can be used to map out what's around the surroundings for a vehicle. Well, this is being used from the air, and doing this, they discovered a huge new Mayan ruins site. So this is an image of it right there, and the only way you can see this is by shooting the LiDAR down at the Earth, and that way you can tell where these different things are. So this turned out to be the largest in the entire pre-Hispanic history of the region. It's 1.4 kilometers in length and 15 meters in height, hiding really in plain sight, but unable to see it until you have this LiDAR there. They said it was constructed sometime between 1000 and 800 BC. So that's before even the Mayan pyramids this thing was constructed. So that's really incredible what they were able to do with this. And that's kind of an example of what LiDAR is on vehicles themselves, on cars, and then, put it onto a plane, and they're able to find some really cool stuff. There's a lot of other discoveries that have been happening because of LiDAR, but this is the most recent one. And again, so it's the oldest ceremonial ground in the Maya area in southeast Mexico. So there's a lot to it. We've got an article on it on Digital Trends. I highly encourage you to read it. It's very fascinating seeing what they've discovered with this, and you can find out some of the other things they've discovered as well. And the final thing here for our trending news before we get into some interviews here coming up. NASA, back in the news. Why not some more space news, huh? So this is what has happened. The InSight lander has been on the Martian soil for a while now, over a year. And it's been having problems with what's called the mole. So it's not an actual mole, but they're trying to dig into the surface. And just it goes to show, this kind of technology, as much as you can test out, as many people as they have working on this, you don't know until you actually get there what's going to actually work. And it turns out the soil was too soft. And what they're trying to do is dig there into the soil to get samples, to test for all kinds of different things. They haven't been able to do it. They've been trying all kinds of different things, from millions of miles away. And now they finally got it to work. So they're able to dig. This is an important thing. I can't imagine how frustrating it must be if you send a lander all the way to Mars and then it's just like one little thing won't work and you can't do anything about it. But they did figure it out. So it is digging, and this was a big celebratory moment for NASA. Just to remind you, too, they do have the other rover that's going to be going to Mars on July 17th of this year. That is the scheduled launch date, so a lot coming up with Mars and NASA. But that is what you can read about right there. The mole has made it underground. You can read about that at digitaltrends.com. For the product of the day. All right, the product of the day is the Microsoft Surface Laptop 3. Yes, the 3 that is on sale right now. So this is a 13.5-inch touchscreen laptop. It's got an Intel Core i5. It's got 8 gigs of memory. It's got 128 gigs solid state drive, So a nice solid state drive on there. There's all kinds of really great specs on this thing, and this is a solid laptop. It's got a good review from us, and it comes in a few different colors, but right now it is on sale. So normally $1,000, $999, on sale for $100 off, $899 right now. So $900 for this laptop. As you can see, USB-A, USB-C, and it's a solid laptop, and that is why it's our product of the day. So it's got 11 and a half hours of battery life, plus standby time when you're away, and you can get fully charged, or get up to 80% rather, in about an hour for a charge. So if you run it all the way down, you can get it up to 80% in an hour. So that's also pretty great on that. And again, that is the Microsoft Surface Laptop 3. That's our deal of the day. What you want to do is follow that link that's right there below me, or wherever you're watching this. There's a link. You want to go through that link, and then you want to take advantage of what this deal is. That is our product of the day. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We've got a lot coming up on the show. We've got some really great guests joining us today, some really great discussions to be had on this show, and I want you to be a part of those discussions. So stick around. Coming up next, we've got Justin Sylvester. He's the co-host of E's Daily Pop. He's the host of his own podcast. He's had some really incredible discussions of his own that we're going to talk about. So that's coming up next, right here on Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Again, thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. Enjoy the conversations and the talk that we get to have here every single day. And I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have right now. Joining us, we have Justin Sylvester, who's a correspondent for E-News, the co-host of E's Daily Pop, and the host of Just the Sip, the podcast. Justin, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh my God, I appreciate it. Thank you.
There's so many things that we could talk to you about and that I want to talk about, but I know I want to get into the podcast first. And it's an interesting concept, and I don't think it can be carried out by anybody but you exactly this way because of your personality. But for everybody out there who doesn't know the show, can you talk about what made you want to create this show and what it's about?
Just the Sip is a platform for celebrities to come and talk about real things in real time and not have to worry about what normal media does, which is, interview them for 45 minutes and chop up chop it up into 5 minutes. It's a place where we can have those real unfiltered conversations. And it's one of my favorite shows that I've ever done in my career.
And you've done a lot of shows, and I was just actually watching part of one and listening to one actually this morning, just to get caught up on it. And they're great because you are able to have these frank discussions, and that's something I wanted to do too. I mean, let's talk about what's going on right now, and in particular this most recent episode that you had. Can you tell us, for everybody out there who hasn't seen this or heard this yet, can you tell them about what this episode is about? Because I think there's a lot that we can talk about with this.
Yeah, at E, we normally cover things that happen in pop culture that happen with celebrities. And this particular episode is one of my favorite that I have ever filmed because it was a real conversation with real people who had real questions about what they can do as white allies in this fight. And a lot of times, I think people get afraid to speak out, or they're afraid to put the wrong thing because there's so much cancel culture and everybody's so politically correct these days that I just wanted to do an hour-long conversation about what can people do and how they can help without judgment. And I invited two of my non-Black colleagues and friends to sit with me and ask me all the questions they are afraid to ask to anybody else. And on top of that, I got Chris Swanson, who is the Flint sheriff, who has become the symbol of hope, the first police officer, the first law enforcement officer who took off his shield, took off his clothes, and walked with every protester out there. And honestly, this guy is like a phenomenon right now. And I just feel like his words and his actions are trickling down into America and all across the world right now because you're seeing more police officers do the same thing. So I got one of the first exclusives with this guy. We talked about it for 45 minutes, and we even go in depth to how he was feeling when he heard the news and saw the video of what was happening with George Floyd. I was pretty impressed with this guy that he was willing to be so candid.
And the fact that you had this open conversation, this frank conversation about what's going on, and you're right, that is what needs to be happening too. I agree with that. Not that this is about that, but I just want to ask you something else too. You brought this up that people were asking you questions, and you had two of your colleagues there asking that. What would be, I guess, to get your feeling on this? What are your personal feelings about everything that's going on right now, from your standpoint?
Look, I watched a day or two of the news, and I was like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. I cannot believe there are only African Americans out there, and we're turning to violence and looting. And there was a part of me that didn't want to believe it. So I forced myself to go out there and really stand with the people and really take it all in. And when I got there, I realized that 60% of the people who were at these rallies and at these marches weren't Black. They were people of all ages, all backgrounds, all races. And the protests were peaceful. They were amazing. They were beautiful. They were unifying. So what I have taken to do on my own Instagram and on my own social media is highlighting what the news won't. Highlighting that people are there for one cause, highlighting that this is diverse, it is unifying, and it's peaceful. And I go out every day. I risk my life with COVID going on right now. And I just want to let people know that it's not what you see on the news. It's not what Meghan McCain is tweeting from her house in Virginia about the streets of New York. This is a once in a lifetime chance in my generation that I'm going to experience this. And I just want people to know, you should not miss out on this at all.
And you're out there sharing this. You're letting people know about this. Like you said, you're posting these things. And that's something else I want to discuss. You mentioned Twitter. You got what she's posting, but certainly Twitter, a lot of people are on that right now and sharing their stories. How do you feel social media in general has been used during this for both good or bad?
Look, I think sharing is caring. And I think sharing can do a lot. A lot of people say, oh, I only have 500 followers or I only have 300 followers. I don't think it will make a difference. It will make a difference. If you can touch one person out of those 500, I will take it. That's a win for us. And what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing a lot of people come out in solidarity and at least posting something that lets people know that Black lives does matter. And they're not afraid to lose the light. And they're willing to share the lives, to save lives. What's also happening on social media is you have people who feel that they're being attacked because they're non-Black. So I call them keyboard Karens who want to come in people's comments and fight. And I also welcome that because that starts a conversation that we wouldn't normally have. So I think it's all amazing.
Justin, yeah, I mean that's such a positive outlook on that as well, and and you're just kind of a bastion of positivity, to be honest, just with what you do and
Thank you.
To have these conversations, and I appreciate that so much. And I want everybody to know too, where should we direct people? I mean, the podcast, just the sip, but anything else that you're doing to experience, what you're doing and what you're sharing with everybody.
Look, just the sip, the podcast will break it all down for you in an hour. And if you want to know what it's like on the front lines in real time, just head over to @TheLadySitter on Instagram. I take my phone out there. I go live for about an hour out of the 4 hours that I'm there just to show you what it's like. And if anybody is having second thoughts, if you're thinking about stepping out that door, if you want to bring your kids to any protest around town, I will tell you from experience, it is a beautiful thing. Take your kids, get out there, and if you're not sure if it's going to be safe or not, look at my Instagram feed. I will bring you to the minute moments so you can figure that out. That's what it's here for me to share those experiences.
Justin, thank you for doing that. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being here with us just to share this, for just a short amount of time. I want everybody to go follow everything you're doing. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live with us today.
Thank you. I super appreciate it. And if you have any other questions or you need anything, just go right onto my Instagram. It's there.
Will do. All right. Justin Sylvester right here with us on Digital Trends Live. Thank you so much. Great talking to him. A great conversation, just talking about all of this. And I appreciate everybody who's joining us wherever you are. Like I said, up next, we're going to have another very good conversation here on the show today. We've got Ciara Pressler for a very special work life, talking about racism in the workplace. And we're going to discuss that. And we're going to discuss what that means, she's going to walk us through all of that. That's why she's here. She's the expert. So she's going to tell us all about this. That's coming up next right here on Digital Trends Live. back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and again, thank you to everybody for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it, for you being a part of the show and the discussions that we get to have. And certainly some of our great discussions are with our guest right now, who is Ciara Pressler, for another edition of Work Life. Ciara, thank you as always. It's so good to have you here on the show to help us, to help everybody here. And I know today's discussion is something very, very important. I kind of want you to introduce this to us, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Well, we're in an unprecedented week of activism and awareness here in America, and I am so grateful for it. It might be a little painful at first, but I am optimistic that it's all for a very, very good and important cause that is long overdue. And since we talk about work and life here on Digital Trends, I want to talk to especially our white viewers on how to not be racist at work.
Which is something that's very important to talk about. And these are discussions that need to be had for everybody. And that's why I'm so grateful for you, bringing this up here today. So I guess to start off, how do we assess that? Like, where do we go to even begin to have this conversation?
Sure. So I want to preface by saying that becoming woke, or as I like to say, awake, waking up is not something that you can get from a 5-minute television segment or even posting a black square on your social media. It is a process. So the pattern that you need to commit to and follow is waking up on a consistent basis over and over. It's an evolution without a finish line. So you cannot be woke without committing to waking up every single day. And I have a really unique privilege of being sort of in the middle. I'm biracial. My father was black, my mother is white. And so I'm privy to a lot of racism that might not happen in front of people with a darker skin tone, but I also am part of the black community. And so I've seen a lot of very nuanced and subtle racism in the workplace and in business throughout my career. And I want to share with you some simple steps you can take to just start your process of being more active and aware at work.
Please do. What are some first steps that we should be taking?
Great. So the first step is avoid tokenism. So if you have one black person on your staff, on your team, on your board, at your executive level, I hope you have at least one person of color at your executive level. Don't look to them for all the answers. That's tokenism, not diversity. So don't look to one person of color to speak on behalf of all people of color. We definitely can bring a much needed perspective to the room, but we don't necessarily need the burden of being the spokesperson for all people. If you only have one, that's tokenism, not real diversity.
Very good advice. So something everybody should be aware of with that. Don't subscribe to tokenism. Don't do that. What's the next thing we should know?
Yeah, I want you to check your representation. I was at a TED Talk last year by a white male art director, and that industry seems to be quite full of white males. And he cited all his influences in this TED Talk to his art, and they were pretty much all white men. So I have changed out my bookshelf today to all authors who are people of color, just to make a point that you're sending a signal all the time of who your influences are. I work with a lot of authors, and I'll be reading through their book, a nonfiction book, and all of the case studies and stories that they tell are sort of like traditionally white names. And so you can put diversity into your work, into your creative work all the time, whether it is a presentation deck or a work of art.
You mentioned, when we started talking about this, that this isn't something that's going to change anybody in 5 minutes. This isn't like something that you can just all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, that's solved now. That's not how that works. I think we all know that. So looking at this, how do we look at this, I guess, as a process, like an expansion, and to continue to get better and educate?
Well, you're making a commitment to be more aware, and now you have to educate yourself. The wrong way to educate yourself is to ask your friends or people you went to college with 20 years ago to educate you. That's not their job. The resources are out there. The internet is plentiful. If you want to read essays and books about understanding this topic more, understanding American history, understanding white privilege, there are so many wonderful resources out there. all it takes is a Google search to find them. It's not the job of people of color to educate white people. There are people who have decided that they want that to be their career track. They are authors, they are educators, they are diversity trainers. You should hire them, but you should pay them money for their services. So I think a lot of times we expect people of color to volunteer, to be the speaker at our conference, to be on the board of our company. I've heard stories of white men getting paid for the same work that a Black woman is doing, but not getting paid for instance, speaking at a conference. That just can't happen anymore, and the tech industry is absolutely complicit in that.
100%. Looking at this, you're talking about, and again, just walking through some of the things that you've said here, pay people for their work. That just seems like common sense, but it's amazing it doesn't happen. Find the research, do the research, Google and educate yourself, and we all need more education. What are some other things here, I guess, that you would recommend for people to do, especially right now?
This is a big one in life as well, which is don't gaslight people. So gaslighting is when you tell people that reality is other than what they see. And so realizing, and I think a lot of people are realizing this week, that people of color, especially Black people, have had a different experience of the world. And just because white people didn't see it before doesn't mean it wasn't true. But I experience all the time being gaslit and people saying, no, that's not how it is. That's not what that person's intention was. If I experienced it, it is true for me. And so I need you to believe me and consider it, and at least take it to heart as equally valid as the way you experience something. So be really careful that you're not brushing off somebody's experience just because you're uncomfortable. Growth takes discomfort. Growth can take pain. Growth might take, some things that we don't like or some things that seem like a step backward. But overall, this awakening is a really positive step for our country.
Wow, Sarah, I can't thank you enough for being here on the show to just talk about this, just for even this short amount of time on everything, that's going on, and hearing your experience and your advice of what should be going on and what is going on and what to do, what not to do. It's so valuable. And I want to let everyone know too, for you, some other places they can go to follow you and anything else that you want to add on to this as well.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say is that, we live in the United States. It is very much a capitalist system. And so money is what talks and money is what makes people take action, right? The police show up when stores start getting looted. I'm not recommending looting. I'm just saying that you can be an activist with your money. So go find a list of Black-owned businesses in your community so that money starts circulating with Black people, with people of color, with other groups that you want to support. Those lists are out there. They might take a little extra research, but people of color have been doing a little extra work for all these years. The least you can do is to take one extra step. So support Black-owned businesses. There are plenty in every sector. We don't just cook barbecue food. We do everything from business advising, like I do, marketing, investing. We can help you with pretty much anything in your business, not just employees, but contractors and vendors as well. So if you'd like to support my business or follow me for more information on what you can do, my Twitter handle is the Mayoress. Not the mayor yet, but with all of this, who knows? And you can go to pregamehq.com to support one little tiny Black-owned business here based in Portland.
You just let us know when you start running. So I'll be there to support. Well, Sarah, it's so nice to talk to you, and it's always great. You always provide great advice, but today, too, just in particular, it's so important to have these conversations, to talk about this, and you are such a great person to have on here to tell us about this stuff. And, of course, Pregame HQ, that is where people can go to follow everything else you're doing, as you said, the Mayoress. And we've got lots of episodes of Work Life, too, that people can follow along with. There's plenty of advice that Sierra has for all of us. And thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for the platform.
Sarah Pressler, right here on Digital Trends Live. Seriously, she's great. So follow along with everything that she's got there with all of the work-life segments. Always fun to talk to her. And educational, which we need. All right, coming up next, we've got Wendy Gonzalez, who is the interim CEO of Samasource. She's going to be talking about some different things that they did at the onset of the pandemic to actually help out their employees to make sure they had safe workspaces. And we're going to be talking about AI. So that's coming up next. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thanks for joining us. Hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're on, that we can join the conversations and the info that we get to share with you here every single day. And we appreciate you being a part of this. And right now, we've got a great conversation to be had. Welcoming back to the show, the interim CEO of Samasource, we have Wendy Gonzalez. Wendy, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me again, Greg. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. To bring everybody up to speed too, for anybody who doesn't know, could you give us just a bit of a definition and explanation of what it is the company does?
Sure. Samasource is a leading industry training data solution. So what that means is that before a computer can learn how to see, speak, or hear, it needs to be trained with structured labeling data. And in that example, a self-driving car cannot really drive itself without being able to detect pedestrians, roads, and traffic signs. So our company provides that critically important training data that allows machines to get smart.
Which is ever more important for everything going on, really, when it comes to technology. But going beyond technology, what Samasource has done at the onset of this pandemic, and just something that you've been doing as a company for a while now, is to help employ people who may be underemployed, who may be underrepresented. And I wanted you to, if you could, tell us a little bit about the company philosophy, and then if we can talk about what it is, this incredible thing that you did for people at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. So our company was founded on a mission of giving work instead of giving aid. We believe that the best way to move people out of poverty permanently is by providing them dignified living wage work. So we work specifically in underserved communities where people are making less than $2 a day, which is the world-based standard for poverty. And we purposely hire in those communities, with the only requirement being under and underemployed and making those level of wages. So given our very purposeful hiring model, as you can imagine, when the pandemic struck, it was something really significant for us. The pandemic not only disproportionately affects people of color, but it also disproportionately affects people in low-income areas. So we felt it particularly important that we take some action that really provided, a holistic approach. Number one in which would keep our employees both safe from a health perspective, and one that would allow continuity of employment, because job security is so critically important, and one that would allow us to ensure that we continue providing the mission critical business continuity that our clients are relying on us for. So at the end of the
which
day,
is
we
a
created.
tremendous task.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty heavy because the areas that the majority of our workers are living in. So the most of our workforce is in Kenya and in Uganda. Didn't have readily available infrastructure. So it's a little bit different than, say potentially you or me as far as making a transition to work from home. The infrastructure of, highly available internet, power, et cetera, was something that was going to be really challenging.
And to tackle those challenges, I mean, which seems, to me like an almost impossible task, but obviously you did. You figured this out, and it's a really unique solution that you came up with. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So, in thinking across all those sort of vectors, how do we address both infrastructure, safety, health, and well-being? We came up with a concept called Sama Home, where this is a completely volunteer program for our workers to engage in, but we basically allowed them to move to what are effectively resorts. So these are clean live workspaces where people, instead of sort of working from your home, you're working from your Sama home, where people have a living space, access immediately to, you know, uh, sanitization, of course. So, they can live as well as have a separate working space. So while they aren't working in groups, they're working in their own individual rooms. It really allows us, not only infrastructure, so highly available infrastructure in terms of power and internet, a very safe, socially distant space, as well as on-site food preparation, on-site nurses and medical staff to provide the safest environment possible, while of course continuing work and providing mission critical training data for our clients.
Which is, like I said before, an amazing accomplishment just to be able to do that. Looking at this, what you've been able to put together here over this time, what are you able to take from where we're at right now, and as we transition, hopefully out of the pandemic and get back to somewhat of a normal life? Are there things and ideas and things that you've created during this that you can take and apply going forward?
Yeah, it's a really great question, Greg. We've learned so much through this process. First, making the transition, because we saw that the governments, both in Kenya and Uganda, were taking very important and swift action towards addressing the prevention of COVID. So we actually had to launch our first Sama home within 2 weeks, which was quite an effort.
Wow.
And so we learned a lot from that. But we also learned about not only the resiliency of our workers, and the basically this transition, where having a technology platform, so our platform is already in the cloud, but one that really allows us to effectively manage quality and deliver at scale, that that we could do this pretty effectively. So one of the things we've been doing in parallel to the Sama home is that we have been testing work from home. One of the things that's been very interesting about the pandemic is that we're finding, in particular, in Nairobi, where a large amount of our workforce is that the government has been investing very heavily due to the COVID pandemic into infrastructure. So we are now getting fiber to the home in some of the areas that we did not have previously. So we are also piloting that effort as well, because while this has been an incredible solution, as you can imagine, families eventually would like to return home and see their loved ones.
Well, and infrastructure and access to broadband internet and things like that are just so important worldwide, no matter what. And that's at least a positive that more people are able to get that now. And I'm sure that's probably a great benefit for you and the company as well.
Yeah, hugely. Really impressed with what the governments have done to really encourage this. So there are multiple ISPs that are rolling out the fiber to the home, and it just wasn't even really a possibility before then. So now we're seeing communities in underserved areas being turned on to fiber optic cable, which is just absolutely incredible. So I think that's a positive coming out of this.
Well, Wendy, for everybody out there too that wants to learn more about, not only SamaSource and all the stuff that you normally do, which is incredible with AI and everything that you described at the beginning, but also learn more about what you've done here with the Sama home, what's the best place I can send them to start doing some research on this?
I would say come to our website, samasource.com. So that would be wonderful.
Well, Wendy, thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate you talking about this. What an incredible accomplishment that you've done, and I'm excited to see where this can go going forward. And like you said, seeing some positivity is always great right now, and seeing that come out and more people access to fiber and what you've done with this to help out your employees is just really incredible. And thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you, Greg. Much appreciated.
Always great to talk to Wendy right there. So seriously, really incredible what they've done. And we've talked about a lot of important things here today. We've talked about a lot of incredible things and things that need to be talked about. Let's continue on, though. We're going to talk about some computing next. We've got Luke Larson joining us for what I know already is probably one of his favorite computers. It's the Dell XPS 15. So that's coming up next. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler again. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button and join the conversations that we get to have. And a conversation shall be had now with our own Mr. Luke Larson joining the show once again. Luke, hello. Luke, what are we talking about today?
Hey, Greg. Got something pretty exciting. I think the laptop community has been really excited for this one. This is the new XPS 15. So you're going to take a look at it there. This is a brand new design from Dell on one of its most popular laptops. So the XPS 15 is obviously a pretty large laptop, it's a 15-incher, but it's actually even bigger in terms of screen this year. So they've taken a lot of the cues from the previous XPS 13 update that came out earlier this year. I'm a big fan of that laptop. But what they took here is the screen size. So this is a 16:10 aspect ratio screen. And we could talk to some of the other design changes. But basically, this is a big 15-inch laptop for people who need that extra power and that extra screen real estate. So we're talking professionals, creatives, people who want to do video editing, photo editing, anything like that. This is going to be one of the top picks for those type of people looking for a new laptop in 2020.
And I know that, the Dell XPS 13 is always one that that Digital Trends in general is always excited about. So with the 15 going a little bit bigger, let's talk about the internal side of it as far as what it's actually got in there that makes it so beefy for like video editing and even maybe gaming, I guess.
Yeah. So like you said, the main difference between the XPS 13, which is kind of a portable, really small laptop you want to take with you on trips, a light work laptop. This is for those content creators as a creative professional. So the main thing that you get in here, and it's only, obviously, so it starts at $1,200 or $1,300, but that's not going to come with any of the stuff that's going to make it really powerful, right? So if you get up to like my review unit here, comes with up to an 8-core processor, and this one's a Core i7 8-core processor, as well as a discrete graphics card. And as you can see, it's still like a pretty thin laptop. Like if you haven't seen one of these in person, like it's kind of amazing how much power they do manage to pack into this. It's a 4-pound laptop, very similar in size to the 16-inch MacBook Pro, and that is the primary competitor for this laptop. But the internals, you get that 8-core processor, and you get those discrete graphics. These are the NVIDIA GTX 1650 Ti. It's a slight bump up from last year, basically. So it's not going to like blow away last year's model. But this is still a pretty powerful computer, and I'm kind of halfway through my testing with various benchmarks and also video editing testing. But the main thing here is just the look of this laptop. Greg, I don't know if you can tell, but this is just a beautiful laptop. You probably can't tell from my poor webcam camera, but it's a really nice
good to me.
Laptop.
The way that you model is really what brings it out.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. The main thing though is that this lower bezel on this laptop, it's just really cool what they've done, because they've made the screen bigger while giving you less overall space, because they've cut down the size of that lower bezel. So the whole laptop is slightly smaller than it was last year, but it has a larger screen. And they've done other things like, I don't know, if you sit it next to a 16-inch MacBook Pro, there are things about it they're like, wow, that's kind of uncanny in terms of how similar it is. If you can take a look at how big that trackpad is, it's huge. And it definitely takes cues from the MacBook Pro. It even has the speaker grills up here right next to the keyboard. So it takes a lot of those kind of, design elements from the MacBook Pro, but it also takes those from the own XPS kind of design language as well. And I think what they've done here is, so far in my testing, this has been a really exciting laptop. Now, there is also a new laptop coming out, the XPS 17. I haven't gotten my hands on that one yet, but that is the new 17-inch laptop in this series. And that one possibly has even more anticipation for what that is, because it's kind of the return of 17-inch laptops. And I think they actually have a solution there that's pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. So XPS 17, if the 15 wasn't big enough for you. One question I did have you gamed on it? Have you tried it?
Yeah, I have done some early gaming on it. It's a pretty, it's not a gaming laptop for sure. And I reviewed recently the Surface Book 3, the Microsoft's kind of big 15-inch 2-in-1, and that's a more powerful gaming laptop, if you can believe it. It has a better graphics card, and the way it's designed, it can take use of that graphics card better. This is still a decent gaming laptop though. Like you can definitely play games on the side with it. I would just not buy it for that reason. Like if that's the primary reason you need a new laptop, like don't buy this because of that. This is for like if you need it for those other reasons, but then like, hey, like do some gaming in the evening, sure. Like that's what this is for.
So it's a bonus, but it's not necessarily what it's all for. Well, Luke,
exactly.
Thank you as always for being here, and I know that the review is up there too as well. I believe, right, that people can take a look at it. Digital Trends right now.
The review is probably going to be coming next week.
Lied.
This is the early look, Greg. Don't move my deadlines earlier, please.
Never mind. Luke needs his time to go through everything on that to get that review up. Then it'll be up. So this was an exclusive. You can read about it next week sometime. No deadline. All right, Luke, as always, good to talk to you. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Greg.
Luke Larson right here on Digital Trends Live. And again, thank you to everybody who's joining us here today. Thanks for joining us here in these conversations that we could have. Thanks for being a part of this show. I want to let you know what's coming up next week. I want you to hit subscribe, number one, so whatever platform you're on, do that. Coming up next week on the show, we got the CEO of Poker Face, Ben Shimon. We've got, which is an app that allows friends to play poker with each other for free. And with COVID-19, that's definitely helped out a lot. Also on Monday, we got Drew with another edition of Awesome Tech. You can't buy yet, so that is going to be there as well. And that's coming up on Monday. And thank you to everybody who is watching Digital Trends Live, everybody who's a part of this show. Really do appreciate it. Stay safe. I'll be right back here tomorrow with another edition of Digital Trends Live. Monday. Not tomorrow.